Hello guys, welcome back. Now I want to talk about the Detroit Red Wings. Now I was looking at their cap from the other day and I'm thinking, wow, this is just a mess. And I'm thinking to myself, they might be the most screwed team in the entire NHL. Now the Red Wings are 21, 23, and 8. Fifth in the Atlantic Division. Now, they might not be technically the most screwed team in the NHL. Maybe you say that's the Arizona Coyotes, but if you look at their cap situation and these contracts, man, I think that these are probably the most brutal contracts in the league. Now, even with the bad contracts, they're in basically the mediocrity of the league with only 21 wins right now. They're basically the epitome of mediocrity. Some days they'll look fine. Some days they'll pull out a win against a good team. But other times they'll just get blown out, and that's typically what happens here. The Red Wings look good one day, and then the other they look trash, and they really can't find the consistency. They're just like the meaning of mediocrity, and they're just mediocrity throughout the whole season. They haven't really been on a great run, really ever, and they haven't really started off good at all, and they really haven't gotten a good run. That's especially something that's contributed to their just pure mediocrity. They just haven't gotten a win streak going, and of course the losing streaks have compiled together. Now there's over 7 players with contracts on the team that extend to 3 years on their contract after the season. You got Henrik Zetterberg at $6 million till 2021. He has 34 points, so it's not too bad of a contract. It's probably the least bad one on this list that I have here. But Zetterberg still at $6 million. It is a bit steep, but hey, at least you're getting some production from him. Then you got Tomas Tatar at $5.30 million till 2021. And he's got 22 points, which is just not cutting it, around a 40-point pace there, and that's not going to do it at all. You're maybe at the most you get 40 points, but that's just abysmal for a guy who's getting paid more than $5 million to get production. He's just not cutting it at all. Of course, you could say he doesn't have the teammates to that, but he has a lot of paid guys that he should have scoring goals for him, but he's definitely not leading the charge there. He's definitely not putting the team on his shoulders, at least. Now you got Franz Nielsen at a $5.25 million contract till 21-22. He has 20 points, and more than halfway through the season, and he doesn't even have enough points to get to 40 right now on his current pace, which is just abysmal. Of course, signing a guy, I think that'll get more production than this when they did sign him, because he had a great deal and a great year before they did sign him. Figured that he would end up getting the production that they wanted, but of course he's not living up to that, especially through this contract. I mean, he's an old guy. I think he's like 33, 32, something like that, and he's signed for like 7 more years. Like, Detroit is making stupid contracts that they really shouldn't be making. Nielsen is going to be like 39 when this contract ends, and he wasn't even putting up great production even then when he was signed. So Detroit is making dumb decisions with these contracts, as you can see, and we'll go down the list even further as they make worse contracts. And then you got Abdelkader, arguably one of the worst contracts in the NHL, at $4.25 million till 22-23, and he's putting up 21 points. 4.25, it isn't absolutely abysmal, but only 21 points for a guy who should be getting paid around, I'd say, 3, maybe at the most $3.5 million for his work. But almost 4.5 is just ridiculous. And he goes for like 7 more years, and the length is ridiculous, the price is a bit ridiculous, and overall he's not playing what he's supposed to be doing, and he really isn't living up to it. What do you know? Like a lot of other contracts on this team. Then you got Darren Helm at $3.85 million, another terrible contract. Till 2021, he has 18 points. He's supposed to be an okay third-line center. I used to like Helm, but he just really hasn't done all that great in the last couple of seasons, and he hasn't really played all that well. He's supposed to be a defensive player, I know that, but I still don't think it's really worth that. I'd say 3 is the maximum I'd give Helm, even though he is at a decent pace. He is at about like 30 points, which is okay. It could be a lot worse for almost $4 million, but you would want that to actually be a lot better. For Helm, he's an okay third-line center, but with that contract, he can't really be that. He has to be that guy that's kind of a liability, especially on the cap end. And then you got probably the worst contract on this list, the worst contract in my opinion on this team, Danny DeKeyser at $5 million, just $5 million straight till 21-22. He has 6 points on the season, and if you think, hey, maybe he's good defensively, well, his Corsi for percentage is 43.5%, and I doubt it gets any worse on the Fenwick and all that. I mean, come on. Danny DeKeyser, he had a couple of decent seasons, but nothing to warrant $5 million. He had a couple of seasons where he got 30 points, and I think above that a little bit, but $5 million for a guy who never even really proved himself to be a great player in this league, just a good player. Never even a great player, and he hasn't done anything since that contract was signed, and he's just been playing just absolutely abysmal. Especially this season, he's just been taking a dive, man. Of course, that Corsi for percentage, those advanced stats are just heavily deepened, not in his favor, and DeKeyser has played just trash since that contract was signed, and really, he didn't even deserve that contract to start out with, and he was a little bit, I'd say, I think he was like 24, 25 when he signed that contract, which is okay, but he really hasn't improved on anything there, and Detroit made a big, big mistake in signing him, of course. And then last, you got Clendening at $1.80 million until 2021, and he has 13 points. I mean, he's supposed to be a depth guy, but he's getting paid for like 4 more years for $2 million now. I'd say it's an okay deal, but he would like more than 13 points for almost $2 million worth of cap, and for that length, it really isn't worth it. Now you got a couple of guys who have been swirling in the trade rumors for a while, like Mike Green, who has seemed like he's been in the rumors forever now. And you got guys like Thomas Tatar, who I could see being shipped off, maybe to maybe to a team like St. Louis, if Detroit is willing to retain salary on there. And you got guys like Gustav Nyquist, who has one more season on after this season, and maybe could get shipped off at the draft. I could see it happening in the next year or so. And then you got RFAs like Larkin, and FSCU, Mantha, Furk, Mrazek, and Bertuzzi after this season, and it's just a mess, man. Detroit just needs to get rid of as much cap as they humanly can. Howard, again, at $5 million is still going for another year after this. They need to sign Larkin big time. He's going to ask for, at the least, like $4 million. FNC is going to ask for $2, maybe even $3 million. Mantha is going to ask for $4, maybe probably $5. It's probably that serious. Furk, he's going to want a smaller deal, maybe $2 million. I believe that he's deserving of that. We got Mrazek, who I don't know if he's going to take a huge downgrade, maybe like $3 million. And Bertuzzi, who's going to get basically $1 million deal, even though he has played well. So basically what's happening is that Detroit just needs to get rid of some cap space here. They've locked themselves, and they put themselves in the corner through all these just terrible signings, trying to be relevant, and trying to keep that playoff streak alive that they missed last season, that they were just in desperate need, and of course they signed the wrong guys in free agency, and now it's biting them in the butt badly. But Detroit desperately needs to tank for Dahlin. A lot of teams right now need to be falling for Dahlin, but Detroit especially. Let's say Detroit maybe decreases in the standings and gets Dahlin. Let's say that happens. This team could basically be revitalized by itself. If Dahlin is in the lineup, plays first line minutes, which I believe he can right out of the gate, he can basically change the shift of this team, kind of like a McDavid, not quite, but I'd say that McDavid is a good comparison for the defensive end for Rasmus Dahlin. Rasmus Dahlin is the defenseman equivalent of Connor McDavid, almost certainly. And if he goes to Detroit, who knows what would happen there? And he could just make the shift of Detroit and make the face of Detroit just flipped on his head, and maybe it works, and maybe Detroit actually becomes competitive. And I won't really say this quite, but maybe they make the playoffs. I don't see it happening still, but Dahlin can really just change the shape of a team. And really, Dahlin makes sense in a Red Wings uniform, but I really don't see it happening. I see them kind of getting back into the middle ground and just being mediocre once again, kind of sort of being competitive in the race, but not really quite, and just them getting like a 11th, maybe 12th picks in that little range. I don't see them coming up in the draft, but who knows? Bettman has done stranger things, right? And if you look at their roster, they don't really have too many great prospects in the system. They got a couple of guys, but they really don't have any bangers that are going to be surefire bets coming through the system. They don't have a lot of guys, especially since they've been making the playoffs consistently. They're having to churn out guys from the late picks, and they haven't done that quite this season or these past couple of seasons. So their prospect pool is really not that great, and they really just need to rebuild for a few seasons here and just get rid of the contracts that they can and really rebuild. But I don't know if they're really going to do that. They're basically the walking mediocrity right now, and if they don't make the playoffs and they're in that middle ground, they probably won't get the best prospects, and that's really a problem for them. And of course, I've been saying for the longest time, Detroit really doesn't have the star power to be competitive and the star power in front to actually be a great team. And guess what? If you get Dolan, that basically erases that. But let's say they don't get Dolan and they get medium, just kind of a fringe out of the playoff spot, and then they end up picking there in the draft. They're going to have to take a long time, especially just cycle through, kind of like Vancouver is about to do, where they're just trying to go on this huge rebuild right now and trying to just stack up the prospects for the next couple of years, maybe in 2020, when the Vancouver Canucks are relevant again. Detroit really needs to do that, but even farther in the future, because I don't think that these contracts are really going to hold them back for quite a while now, and they're going to have to make this a slow process. It's going to be tough for them, but that's the reality that I think they're going to have to face, especially if they don't get Dolan. But hey, Detroit fans, it was your time to shine for quite a while there. Be happy with it and look back in the history books and say that you guys were part of that. But now step aside for a little bit and let some other teams get the shine for at least a little bit, and then you can come back to glory. Why not? Once again, as long as you get Dolan. Let's go today, guys. Like and subscribe if you have not. Ring that bell if you haven't, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.